The Richard Roeper Show is brought to you by AmericanEagle.com Studios. The digital landscape is changing rapidly, and to compete in today's online business environment, you need an experienced partner. Since 1995, AmericanEagle.com has partnered with companies of all sizes offering web design, web development, e-commerce, mobile apps, and digital marketing to drive your overall business's success, because they believe that today's online world is your online opportunity. Visit AmericanEagle.com to get started today. All right, so much to get to. Before we get to what we're going to get to, I want to get to this crazy week, as always, but strange news coming out of Washington, D.C., and this whole security breach and the hearings about it. I'm still wrapping my brain around the concept that these high-level security chats were on Signal, on an app. And that's no offense to Signal, but I'm like, I have like a poker group that has a Signal thread. Shouldn't there be something way more top secret, like in the Mission Impossible movies where it's a super duper double encrypted military type communication system, not Signal? But because we're here mostly to talk about pop culture and entertainment, I'm going to bring this around to a movie called War Games, which I found out this week after I tweeted about it. That, listen, it's been 42 years, I get it, that a lot of people were like, oh, I need to check out that movie. And I'm like, yes, you need to see War Games. It's a great film. As I mentioned, I think it's from 1982. I want to play a clip here. So the setup basically is Matthew Broderick plays a young teenager named David Lightman. And Ali Sheedy is his kind of almost about to be girlfriend. They're hanging out. And he's got this really cool computer setup in his bedroom. And he's trying to access certain government systems. He just wants to play cool video games. And here's a clip from War Games.
We're in. It thinks I'm Falcon. Hello.
How can it ask you that?
It'll ask you whatever it's programmed to ask you. You want to hear it talk?
Yeah.
I'll ask it how it feels. I'm fine. How are you?
Excellent. It's been a long time. Can you explain the removal of your user account on June 23rd, 1973?
They must have told it he died. People sometimes make mistakes.
Yes, they do.
How can it talk?
It's not a real voice. This box just interprets signals from the computer and turns them into sound.
Shall we play a game?
Oh.
I think I missed him.
Yeah, weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
Love to. How about global thermonuclear war?
Wouldn't you prefer a good game of chess?
Later, let's play global thermonuclear war.
Fine.
All right.
Which side do you want?
I'll be the Russians.
Please list primary targets.
Who should we nuke first?
Let's see. How about Las Vegas?
Las Vegas. Great. What next? Seattle!
Yeah! Kill him.
So, can you believe that long ago, so much on point there, where David, the character, wants to start a game of global thermonuclear war. He goes, shall we play a game? And he wants to play global thermonuclear war. The problem is the authorities and the weapons folks on both sides of back then it was the United States and the Soviet Union, as it was called, right? They think it's real. And that's the whole setup of War Games. And it's really just a beautifully done, perfectly executed thriller. And it's incredible to me that David Lightman, a teenager in 1982, seems to know more about technology and defense systems and accessing computers than some of these jokers do all these years later. So check it out anyway, War Games. That's not what we're here to talk about, even though we just talked about it. Want to talk a little bit about March Madness. Last podcast, I believe we talked about the top 10 days on the sports calendar. March Madness didn't disappoint. We're heading into, the Sweet 16 now, and then eventually the Elite Eight and the Final Four. Very interesting viewership for the second round across TBS, CBS, TNT, and True TV. Our old friends at True TV. That's lowercase TRU, capital T, capital V. Anyway, viewership is averaging across the various channels and outlets there, 9.4 million viewers. That's the most watched NCAA tournament in 32 years. How about that? A couple of games last week, Kentucky, Illinois, and Duke Baylor averaged more than 10 million viewers. It's interesting because CBS and Turner Sports, they pay billions and billions of dollars to air these games, to broadcast these games, to telecast these games. And as we've talked about in the past, there are only a few things that can be considered event TV that people need to watch in real time anymore. And that's certain series finales or season finales. Because if you don't watch it when it first airs, someone's going to spoil it for you on the internet. And on the other hand, a lot of shows, they'll dump all 10 episodes of a series at once. So it's up to you to watch it. And if you don't watch it within a week or two, it's going to get spoiled for you. But when it comes to sporting events, I know there are a few people out there that will record a game, a match, whatever, and then hope to get home and watch it before anybody ruins it for them. But that's a minuscule portion of the listenership or the viewership or the watchership, whatever you want to call it, because people need to see it in real time. That's the urgency, the immediacy, and the drama of sports. That's why we get those huge numbers for the Super Bowl. But same thing with the NCAA and March Madness. Now, interesting piece from Chris Chase for USA Today Sports. And I thought this was going on, but now I have been vindicated. Chris writes, if you've been watching March Madness and wondering if you're seeing more commercials and sitting through longer games, you're not crazy. NCAA tournament games are longer than their regular season counterparts, and as a result have become nearly interminable. So the Kentucky Notre Dame game, there was a game that had in the last 8 minutes of the game, there were 8 timeouts. During the regular season, teams are granted 1 60-second timeout and 4 30-second timeouts per game. It's a lot already because you have the media timeouts. The TV timeouts are at the 16, 12, 8, and 4 minute mark. Sometimes they'll go a minute or so longer than that because you have to wait for a natural stoppage in play. But teams have the same 5 timeouts in tournament play, but the lengths are reversed. 4 60-second timeouts, 1 30-second timeout. The first timeout of the first half also becomes a full media timeout. We're getting sometimes 3 minutes of commercial breaks during the tournament, twice as long. Even the halftime show. So halftime during the regular season of an NCAA men's or women's basketball game is 15 minutes. And that's perfect, right? Gives the teams a chance to collect themselves and the coaches to map out some strategy. The viewers can watch the fun halftime shows, but also make a sandwich or go to the bathroom or do some other things. Halftime is officially 20 minutes for the playoffs for the March Madness. Sometimes it goes to 21 or 22 minutes. Then you've got, on top of all that, those replay reviews. So longer timeouts, longer media breaks, longer halftimes, and they got to do something about these reviews. It's got to be more like the NBA, and even there, you get a coach's challenge, and that's it. Now, I mean, in some of these plays, they'll show the close-up of the dude's foot on the baseline. He clearly stepped out of bounds, or somebody hacking a guy's arm off, and they're challenging the no foul call, whatever the case may be, or goaltending, and it's like the guy reached over the basket and tipped the ball in. He can't do that or knocked it away. And they look at every angle. Sometimes it's 2, 3, 4 minutes, and then the call that we all know is going to happen got vindicated. So, listen, I still love watching the games, but they got to do something about this, man. They're going on forever, and it's like you can hear that, that commercial playing music, and I'm like, we just had a break, and the idea of so many timeouts in the stretch run, and listen, this has been happening in the NBA, and certainly happens in the NFL a lot too. But especially in basketball, there's such a flow to the game, and a team goes on a 10-0 run or making a huge comeback, and then we go away for 3 minutes and we come back, and it's like, oh yeah, even the crowd, and if you've been at a game, any game live, the commercial breaks really hit home, even if you're going to an NFL game, because you see the players all standing around The officials all standing around waiting for the TV commercial break to end so everybody can start playing again. And that's the nature of the business. It is a business. But this year with March Madness in particular, it's gotten to the point where I'm like, oh man, in the early rounds, at least you can a lot of times click over to another game. But now we're going to be held hostage by the games. And I still want to watch the games. But you do find yourself, you don't want to click away because you know they're going to come back. And you don't want to miss a key play. But it does take away a little of the excitement of watching the games with so many breaks. So I hope they can find a little bit better way to move things along. Speaking of the term March Madness, this is a very interesting background on this. And I don't know if anybody, well, I know some people know this, but I don't know if a lot of folks realize. They just hear that term March Madness. And I actually dug up a story from Intellectual Property News. I know we all subscribe to Intellectual Property News. Well, it's always an honor if you're the centerfold in Intellectual Property News. But this is from 2011. So it wasn't really that long ago, 14 years ago. The NCAA is finally the exclusive owner of the now famous March Madness trademark. March Madness refers to the annual college basketball tournament, which ultimately crowns college basketball's national champion. I like to spell things out for you in the Intellectual Property News, folks. The March Madness term was first used in a 1939 magazine article by Henry V. Porter, an executive secretary for the Illinois High School Association, to describe the Illinois State High School Basketball Championship. By the 1980s, the term was used by Intersport CEO Charles Besser for the title of a TV show he produced about the NCAA tournament. Intersport, I did some stuff for them. Charlie's a great guy. They did all kinds of different programming, sometimes entertainment. I once did an ABC special produced by Intersport where I interviewed George Clooney. And I went to Ray Allen's house and watched He Got Game with Ray Allen, which of course starred a young Ray Allen, in his own private screening room. That was a really cool special I got to be a part of. So anyway, Charlie, in March of 1989, filed a March Madness U.S. trademark application for, quote, entertainment services, namely presentation of athletic and entertainment personalities in a panel forum. Again, he filed a trademark application for entertainment services, namely presentation of athletic and entertainment personalities in a panel forum. Thereafter, years of disputes waged on between Intersport and the NCAA over rights to the trademark. But now being 15 years ago, the NCAA, you ready for this? Paid $17.2 million to Intersport so that they would stop using the term and they would have sole ownership. So good for Charlie Besser and Intersport. So for a time, Intersport, the NCAA, the Illinois High School Association were all using the trademark, but the Illinois High School Association has now become a licensee of the NCAA. NCAA now owns March Madness. So that worked out for everybody. $17 million for the rights to two words. March Madness. It's all about getting there first. All right, let's take a break, talk about Portillo's. We'll come back, and we got some reviews for you, kids. All right, we're going to talk about Portillo's. You guys know the drill here. They're known for their famous Chicago hot dogs with all the famous correct Chicago ingredients, right down to that poppy seed bun. But there's so much more. They got great burgers. You can get Italian sausage, Italian beef, amazing French fries. Also some really good salads. Don't shortchange the salads at Portillo's. And then, of course, you top it off with the legendary, the one and only chocolate cake. I know people who order the entire cake for birthdays and other occasions, but you can also get a slice, which will probably last you 2 helpings because it's amazing. And always, of course, you keep the cake at room temperature. That's how they do it at Portillo's. That's how you want to consume it. Now, there are Portillo's in many locations across the country, but you can also order online and ship it via Portillos.com. You can find a location near you, order online. Portillo's, Portillos.com, Portillos.com.
It's a human.
What did you think I was?
Nothing. Ghost. You'll be safe from the Queen here.
The queen stole everything from all of us.
I'm gonna need your help.
It's time to restore our kingdom.
Did I frighten you?
That is a clip from the 2025 version of Snow White, which arrived in theaters last week. Didn't get great reviews. I actually thought it was fine. There was so much madness surrounding the production of this film and the stars of this film and the presentation that I don't know if it was a doomed project from the start, but Snow White's in theaters now. It is not going to be a hit. I don't know, maybe eventually recover its money, but it's definitely going to be one of the least successful Disney reimaginings of animated classics. Of course, the original goes way back a million years. Variety did a piece that I thought was pretty rough on, in particular, Rachel Zegler, the star of the film. Here's from the Variety piece. On August 12th, 2024, 3 days after Rachel Zegler hit the stage at Disney's D23 fan event to introduce the first trailer for Snow White, she thanked supporters in an X post that drove the teaser to 120 million viewers in 24 hours. And then she added an afterthought in the same thread, always remember Free Palestine. That addendum amassed 8.8 million views, nearly 4 times the number for the initial post, quickly making the rounds, and many inside the studio were expressing shock that the Snow White star would commingle the promotion of its $270 million tentpole with any kind of political statement. The Variety article goes on and talks about how Gal Gadot, who is Israeli, of course, was receiving more death threats and they had to get her security. And then it goes into great detail about other problems that Disney reportedly, allegedly had with Rachel Zegler saying things about the old school movie and saying it was out of date, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know, whoever was behind this article, they seem to really want to put a lot of it on Rachel Zegler, who is, a grown woman, but also a young woman. And I think is actually spectacularly good in the film, by the way. But there are a lot of other things that went wrong with this. So people wanted it to be the same as the 1937 Snow White. It's not. Obviously, you now have a Latina actress playing Snow White. Just to briefly get into that, too, where people say, well, the grim fairy tale, she was Snow White, the fairest of them all. There are various versions of Snow White that even predate the grim fairy tale, which is kind of an accumulation. But yes, we get it. And they tackle that in the movie by giving us a backstory saying she was born to the king and queen during a snowstorm. So they call her Snow White. Who gives a shit? I mean, I don't believe that most people are really, who say they're offended when a character is now played by a person of color or something changes and they say, that ruined my childhood memory. No, it didn't. First of all, you can still watch the 1937 Snow White or the original Beauty and the Beast or, remember The Little Mermaid? Because Halle Bailey did play The Little Mermaid, and people are like, what, the Little Mermaid is white? I'm like, The Little Mermaid is half human, half fish, which is pretty effed up. So if you're getting worked up about fairy tales and cartoons and mermaids, I don't really believe you are that offended by it. Get over it. You can still watch the original. That's the cool thing if you want to. I did think they stumbled with the 7 dwarves, which are now the 7 magical creatures, and they were going to have all live action. Then they decided to make these CGI, whatever they are, 7 magical creatures. They still have the same names, but it's kind of odd because they're about the same size as Snow White. They're not really diminutive or not too small, and they don't look right because the rest of the movie, and I gave it 3 stars because I thought the music was great and the story's still compelling and the cast was excellent. But the movie's live action, okay? But it's not one of those like The Lion King and some of those other movies where the animals are all talking and stuff. So you have live action humans, mostly filmed in a studio, but it looks like they're in the forest with real animals, even though they're probably, I'm sure they are, CGI creations. But then you have these but the animals are photorealistic, like they are in The Lion King and Jungle Book and things like that. And then you have these odd CGI magical creatures, and it never looks like they're seamlessly interwoven into the actual screen. So I get that. For those reasons, the controversies, there were a lot of delays. There was a COVID delay. There was more controversy because Rachel talked about how she didn't get invited to the Oscars for West Side Story, even though it was nominated for a bunch of Oscars, and Disney didn't want her to come to the Oscars because she was working on Snow White, but then they flew her out. And all this behind the scenes stuff didn't help, but I still think more than anything, it might have been those early clips from the, with the CGI magical creatures, and it looked like a misfire. So I think people who see it, families, young people, it'll have a little bit of a life. It's certainly well made. There's a lot of effort, and there's some they got a couple of classic songs, and then of course some new songs. But so much surrounding Snow White, and I'm just contributing to it because I'm talking as much about the controversy as the film itself. The film's in theaters. It's pretty decently okay. How about that for a blurb? It's pretty decently okay. Death of a Unicorn is not another article about anything happening with Snow White. It's a new movie.
The fuck was that?
Must be moose mating season or something.
Aren't you the most magnificent thing?
Unicorns used to be seen like these divine monsters because people fully believe that they could heal literally anything.
It's an opportunity for immortality.
We have a moral imperative to harvest every last one. Called it. There's no negotiating with monsters.
It's getting a lot of buzz, and I get it. So it's another one of these movies that we keep seeing. And I'm not even talking about classic horror movies, or, the typical horror movies where everybody goes to the cabin in the woods. But there's all these movies now where a bunch of people go to a once in a lifetime getaway, seeking that amazing experience. A lot of times the host is a zillionaire. So you had Midsommar and Glass Onion and Knives Out Mystery in the Menu and Blink Twice. And we recently had Opus. And Death of a Unicorn kind of follows that same basic premise. So Paul Rudd, the great Paul Rudd, plays Elliot Kintner. He is an attorney for a large pharmaceutical corporation. And Jenna Ortega is his teenage daughter, Ridley. Now they're on their way to a crisis management summit with Elliot's boss, Odell Leopold, who's played by Richard E. Grant. And Odell's wife is played by Téa Leoni, and their son is Will Poulter. Great cast. So Elliot and his daughter, now he's a widower who probably hasn't paid enough attention to his daughter because he's so busy trying to make sure that she's financially taken care of that she doesn't pay attention to her. They're on their way to this retreat in the middle of nowhere, and they hit something in their car. Boom, big crash. Is it a deer? Is it a horse? Is it a goat? It turns out it's a unicorn, an actual unicorn. So they hit and kill a unicorn. The blood is sort of a purpley blue. There's a big horn, the unicorn. And then they're like, well, let's just put the unicorn on the back of the car and still go to the retreat. Big mistake. Huge. Then from that point forward, they go to the retreat, and maybe the unicorn's not really dead. And they realize that the unicorn's blood has magical healing properties and might be able to even cure cancer. And just by coincidence, they're at the home of a pharmaceutical giant. So now they're going to harvest the blood, and there's other unicorns that get involved. And it becomes this horror movie. And and the unicorns, by the way, as you can see by the posters and the trailers for this film, they're not, magical Saturday morning lunchbox unicorns. They are the unicorns that you see on tapestries and sometimes in old-timey fables, who are these giant beasts who get hunted by the humans and then are violent and scary and get their revenge. So the unicorns are huge, and they got big horns. They do have magical properties, but they're also hell-bent on killing the humans that killed one of their own. So, it becomes a very heavy-handed, I thought, look at the rich and eating the rich, literally, and how the rich are greedy and how we can't have nice things, even unicorns, because they're going to turn violent against us. And it's an intriguing premise. And Paul Rudd is interesting because the guy he's playing. I mean, there's always that little bit of that Paul Ruddness to a character, but he's this attorney that wants to become, or kind of take over the company and become the heir apparent to the fortune. And he's terrible in the way that he keeps opting for greed and pleasing the family over his daughter. And there's always going to be some moments of redemption, but he's very good at playing somebody, not a likable guy. And Jenna Ortega, she definitely likes being in scary movies and dark movies and gothic movies. She's really good. But once we start getting into the humans versus unicorn battles, which are played for very gruesome violence and then dark laughs, it becomes very repetitive. So 2.5 stars for Death of Unicorn in theaters. I want to close out with a big recommendation, though. The Studio on Apple TV Plus. You might have seen Seth Rogen out and about promoting this.
Being the head of Continental is the only job I've ever wanted.
Yeah, I'm honored, obviously, to be one of the people that gets to choose, which movies get made and which ones don't. That's huge. And I got into all this because, I love movies, but now I have this fear that my job is to ruin them.
The job is a meat grinder. The job makes you stressed and panicked and miserable. But when it all comes together, and you make a good movie, it's good forever.
Well, you're gonna get us all fired.
So The Studio is a 10-episode satire of Hollywood. And Seth's character is Matt Remick, who has just become the head of the fictional Continental Movie Studios. And great supporting cast, Catherine O'Hara, Ike Barinholtz, Bryan Cranston. And this is a very inside Hollywood satire, but on the other hand, people know so much about the workings of the entertainment business now that I think it's very accessible, very reminiscent of, films such as The Player, and even something like the Larry Sanders Show, where you're pulling the curtain back. And it's very, there's sort of layers to this. I don't know. Some people would say that meta thing, because it's a television series about the head of a movie studio at a time where they're worried about movies dying. And even though it's a fictional movie studio, Seth Rogen's character, who's this great combination of, he loves movies, he drives old time cars, and he wants to be on the set of movies, which, studio heads, usually it's like, stay away from the set. But he also has a gigantic ego, and he wants to change the culture of Hollywood. He wants to be the Scorsese, the Christopher Nolan. He wants to be that guy, but he also doesn't want to get fired. And there are a lot of real life people playing themselves. And I don't want to give away the nature of their cameos, but they do a great kind of satire of the Golden Globes, and there's Charlize Theron there, and even like Ted Sarandos, who's the head of Netflix, cameos as himself. And it's really, really funny, first of all, but actually very knowing. Because, for example, when Seth Rogen's character of Matt Remick first gets the studio job, his first mandate is to do something with the rights they have to the Kool-Aid Man, because they want to figure out a way to copy the success of Barbie and get this IP into a $1 billion hit. How are you going to make a movie about the Kool-Aid Man? And he comes up with an ingenious way that I don't want to give too much away, but this is very, very kind of entourage, behind the scenes, smart, funny. Seth Rogen, I think, has hit a next level over the last 6-7 years as a creator of content, but also an actor, and just he's working all the time. They always say that pot takes away your ambition, but I don't know about that. Not in Seth's case. So I love The Studio on Apple TV Plus. I think it's going to be a big hit, and we'll probably be back for seasons 2 and 3. All right, that's going to do it for the Richard Roeper podcast. Let's try not to play any war games. Let's just play a nice game of tic-tac-toe. Talk to you later.